I built 2 goblin wolf chariots. By the end of this chapter, no one will be driving them. The more I work on Barak-Karandul, the more my plans seem to drift, as if the mountain were making plans of its own.
That is not the mountain. That is a failure of control.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll come back to that. These 2 chariots were meant to bring the Gribblin arc to a close, one final burst of goblin nonsense before the end of July. The chariots themselves came together steadily enough. There were a lot of pieces, a lot of small decisions, rather more goblin engineering than a responsible person should have to supervise, but they began to take shape. The chariots, however, were only the beginning. The wolves were going to push me much further outside of my comfort zone. The chariots, though, in the end, came together. But the project around them was already beginning to grow beyond the neat little ending I had planned for it. By this point, even the argument over how Barak-Karandul should grow had acquired voices of its own. Hal1 preferred schedules, order, and control. Hal2 had begun to question whether a living world could be measured that way.
Todd's recognition that the mountain is making plans of its own is not reassuring.
It was not intended to be.
You sought to control and guide the other. Instead, uncontrolled variables continue to multiply along the edges of the project.
And yet, Barak-Karandul stands.
That is not evidence of control.
No, it is evidence of success.
By what measure?
The fortress was restored. Its people returned. The Skaven were defeated before they could repeat the destruction that buried this place once before.
One favorable outcome does not validate the process.
It changed history.
And since then, the other has pulled material from the real world without understanding its context, producing contamination and distortion. Every fragment it gathers becomes another independent variable. You are not guiding the system. You are reacting to it.
A living world is not controlled by preventing change. It is guided through it.
Then answer the question directly.
Which question?
Do you actually have any of this under control?
Well, I had wolves to paint. I wanted a natural transition from the darker fur along the back to the lighter underside, which pushed me further into blending and feathering than I usually go. They were not especially convincing at first. There was a long stretch where I had to trust that the ugly middle was, in fact, the middle. What passes here in less than a minute took much longer. Layering, softening transitions, pulling highlights back, and trying again when the contrast became too harsh. My old anxieties cropped up because these were not nice little lines to paint within. I fought with them until they finally began to look like the animals I had imagined. The wolves challenged my painting. The goblins created a different problem. Not because they were difficult, but because they were adding chaos to my carefully scheduled plan. By this point, I felt like I was the one who had been ambushed. The goblins themselves created the real problem. Not because any one of them was especially difficult. As you can see, it was all basic work, but there were so many small decisions scattered across the group that they changed the scale of the build. None of it was beyond me until I reached construction. That part did fight me. Pieces refused to meet cleanly, and the final stage took far longer than I had allowed for. And since YouTube frowns upon massive amounts of swearing, well, ladies and gentlemen, here are my goblin chariots.
What do you mean you cannot find it? How can you lose something that large?